I think that's just our culture.
I love that.
We're just not going to let somebody leave the building feeling like nothing happened for them, that they couldn't get any help. Because even if there happens to be something we can't do within our organization, we have so many relationships in the community with so many other, nonprofits, companies, the hospital, you name it.
Hi, I'm Jessica McCoy here with Raising Midland, a podcast for parents in the Permian. Today, I'm with my friend Tanya Eckert with Casa De Amigos. We're really excited to talk today about what Casa De Amigos does here in West Texas and how it's impacting families. How's it going, Tanya? Thanks
It's
for
going
coming.
great. Thank you for letting me be here today.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. I have to be honest with you. My only interaction with Casa de Amigos is my friend Amanda Perry. I know that you said that she's on your board.
She is on our board. Her parents actually were our GED teachers for a while. Yeah. So Amanda's been around for a little while. Probably she's been on our board. I think this is her 6th year.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, she is great.
But she's like
Great.
y'all's biggest cheerleader.
Absolutely.
That and Carrie Hawkins.
Yeah.
They always, I mean, those two girls are like walking pieces of sunshine.
Mm.
But they've said so many wonderful things about your organization, and I'm really excited to be able to, connect and kind of get people interested in your organization more than they already are now. Because I know that you guys are some of the most popular organizations to support here in West Texas.
Well, I'm really glad to talk about Casa. I love being there. I love Casa de Amigos. I love what we do, and so I'm so glad I get to share today. So
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. So, what is Casa de Amigos for our friends that don't know what it is?
So, Casa de Amigos has just a really fantastic story. It started in 1964, and it's your classic church lady story. There was a group of church members who got together because Black and brown children didn't have equal opportunity for education. And they were like, basically, this is ridiculous. Let's find a solution. We're going to do something about this. Every child needs to be able to have an opportunity for education. And so that's basically what they did. They met with the preacher, they got together, came up with a plan, and there was Casa de Amigos.
In the 60s.
1964. It started in an abandoned grocery store on Dallas Street.
Really?
Yes, and if you could see the picture, I mean, straight cinder block window openings, and they fixed it up, and they.
Nice mustard seed.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so it started from there, and immediately it started to grow. There's never been a time when there hasn't been growth at Casa de Amigos. They went from that to trying to make sure that women had opportunities in the workforce. They provided driving instructions so people could get a license so they could get to work. I mean, it's always been about making sure that people had every opportunity that they could have
So y'all are like a
to get
jack of all
ahead.
trades at your
Yes,
history.
yes. I
So,
mean, we do a lot of things.
wow.
Yeah.
So I love those stories about Midland when it started with just a couple women.
Hmm.
Usually it's, give a group of moms a job or a
Exactly.
group of grandmothers a job and they will find, I swear, if we had a ton of women in government that are like older women that are retired maybe, have a feeling a lot of things would get ready to be completed and a lot of solutions would be offered because I feel like if you give somebody even who's busy a
Exactly.
job, something gets done.
Exactly,
That's
exactly,
wonderful.
and that's really how it happened. They had a mission, and they just executed.
That is really cool.
Mhm.
So whenever I think Casa de Amigos, I'm thinking, okay, well, do they work with families? Do you guys, I mean, it sounds like you guys do a bunch of things. So who are like the main people that benefit from your organization?
I think one of the unique things about Casa de Amigos is that we really serve throughout the lifespan. We have babies there all the way. I think our oldest client to date was 103 years old before she passed. And so, in our mission, just to kind of boil it down
Yeah,
to our
mission, vision,
mission,
and strategy.
exactly. Our mission is to help people help themselves. So we improve the quality of life by helping people help themselves. Our vision is to ensure that each client that we serve has their highest level of self sufficiency or independence in the community. So we can do that in so many different ways. And since we are a nonprofit organization and not like a school or a governmental organization, we can be very creative in the different things that we do. And so we have four different programs. I mean, it started out with educating children. We have four different programs now. So we fulfill our mission through youth and adult education, through health and wellness, through social services, and through senior services. Yeah. And so in that, we're able to really work with families, individuals, you know,
Soup
just,
to nuts.
yeah,
I love that.
exactly. Just throughout the lifespan.
So you might also, I can imagine you, if you start working with a family and you start identifying, maybe your first identifier is like working with a child. And then you start to notice that
Exactly.
maybe literacy is not there for the parent. Okay, well maybe we can work on that. And then you find out that the grandparents might need assistance. So you're really
Exactly.
working on multi-generational support for families. That's fantastic.
Exactly, and that's something that really throughout the lifespan of Casa de Amigos, it's always been important. You can work with multi generations, and really make an impact for an
Wow.
entire family. I mean, it completely changes everything.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Harvard has a organization as part of their early childhood education department, and it talks about, they've been doing a lot of research currently in conjunction with the Royal Center for
Hmm.
Early Child and Intervention Center. And one of the things that I've noticed, it's Harvard Center for Developing Children or Child for the
Hmm.
developing child. They talk about the impact of housing, the impact of like a child not having green space, even or the impact of a family not having access to medical care or food security.
Exactly.
Those a lot of those factors, I mean, I'm just limiting the base. I'm
Hmm.
just really
Hmm.
discussing the basics here, but they talk about, how much that can impact the trajectory economically for a city.
Yes.
So we had the West Texas Food Bank here a few minutes, well, a couple hours ago. It feels like a few minutes
Uh-huh.
ago, and you're having fun. But we were talking to Libby Stevens about, how the West Texas Food Bank has been able to quantify their contributions by helping provide food at a regular, consistency. And it has been
Exactly.
able to economically impact positively $19 million back into our economy here in West Texas. I mean, that's incredible. So,
Exactly.
how I can imagine if you're looking at a whole family
Mhm.
system, because you have that flexibility as an organization to kind of fill in gaps where you see fit, where is your biggest need right now? What are you identifying within families as the biggest need? Is it, is it like housing support? Is it social services support? Kind of fill me in.
Well, it's a little all over the place.
Yeah.
And that too is another unique thing about Casa de Amigos is really we can look at their situation as a whole. It may come in as a food need, and it's great that you bring up Libby and the West Texas Food Bank because we have a very close relationship with them. We're one of the distribution sites, and we work with them every third Tuesday of the month, distributing boxes to families
Hmm.
who are in need. And but we're able to sit down individually with people and kind of look at what their situation is and then say, "Oh, okay, how can this is something that might help you with this." And talking to them about what their goals are and what their situation is. And we're a very friendly, easy place to do that. And we can really work through some different issues that people have because sometimes it's just a matter of education. Sometimes it's just a matter of information. It's just all so many different things. It could be a crisis that's happening in a family, a medical crisis, or any number of things. Or it could just be the high cost of groceries today. And I just can't seem to get this prescription if I have to buy all of these groceries for my family.
Right.
So, it's just looking at what the family situation is in the whole and then dissecting it and letting them talk to you about what the strengths are, within their situation, and then what are some places that they'd like maybe some help with, and then doing that. Sometimes somebody will come in, and we had an older adult came in who needed some help with her electricity, and she's on a fixed income, could not figure out why in the world her electric bill was going up and up and up. So she's on a fixed income, and her electric bill is out of control. We had the opportunity to sit down with her. We were able um, to help her with her utility bill. But in looking at it, everybody has to be on a contract these days
Yeah.
for your electric. Yeah. She didn't know that. She had no idea. And so her bill had tripled, and she could not
She
figure
didn't know to
out.
shop around.
Exactly. She had no idea. So it gave us the opportunity to sit with her. We talked to her about what that was. We showed her what it was. And we were able to help her decide what she wanted to do. So she knows basically what her electric bill is going to be every month. And then we told her about the senior center. So now she gets to enjoy some time with people.
So you were
Um,
able to fix a problem and then connect her to another organization.
or another service within our
Oh, okay, I
organization.
didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you guys do for seniors, because I
So
feel like
our
that's a demographic that people just
mhm.
overlook.
Well, the seniors, they are so vital to our community. Many of them have lived here forever
I
that we
know.
serve. And many of them actually live or own their own homes.
Can you imagine?
And so,
I mean, my
yeah,
grandparents used to tell me how, like, comparatively thinking about what they paid for their home back in
exactly. I
back in,
know.
like, 1960 or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
and then you look at the housing prices. That's
hmm
amazing.
It is.
Wow.
And so we have on our campus at Casa De Amigos, we have a senior center. And several years ago, we were awarded the contract with the city of Midland to operate and manage the senior centers, the Southeast Senior Center and the Midland Senior Center, which has been such a joy because they are awesome people and a lot of fun to be
I
around.
love the elderly.
But we're able to help the seniors lessen the isolation that they face. Many of them don't get out a lot. And so they get to enjoy time with friends.
Sweet.
They also get a nutritious meal every day that they are at the senior center. And this is a really cool thing about Casa Senior Centers. We are the only senior centers in the Permian Basin area that I know of that have VR. So we have
Really?
virtual reality sets for all three senior centers, and they get to be involved in that. So they can take a little vacation to Italy, and then they can talk amongst themselves. One of my
I
favorite
would pay
stories.
money to see an elderly
Oh, it
woman
is
wear that. It's
so
so sweet.
it is great. One of so when right after we first got the VR sets, we were trying them out, and they wanted to go to where they had grown up and married. And so we were able to actually Google map
That's right.
exactly to where he and his wife lived after they first got married. The house was exactly the same color. And it was just the sweetest thing you have ever seen. I mean, it was like memory road. And then
They hear the
another
stories.
oh, yeah. And then the other fella next to him, he put on the VR sets, and he said, "Well, I'm from there too. Did you ever go fishing at?" And so they had this long conversation about, all of these memories they had in their community where they grew up and everything. So it's just wonderful, sweet things like that. And of course, there's so much more that we do over at the senior centers. They do crafts, they play games, we take field trips. We go and see the Rockhounds play, once a year. And I mean, just do a lot of different things. We actually even have a senior prom. So,
Sign me up.
yeah.
I love, like, when I say I love the elderly, I genuinely do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm an only kid, so I feel like I've been, like, 65 my entire life, because as an only child, you're kind of forced into, like, hanging out with adults all day
Yeah.
because It's only you. And I have learned so much. I have a kind of a wide gamut of friends, I feel like, of age groups.
Mhm.
And I've really enjoyed so much getting to know some, like back when I worked in Dallas, I befriended a 81-year-old,
Mhm.
and we would have a book club,
Yeah.
and we would read books, separately, but like we would come together and we would discuss them. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
much to be like, so much you can learn from
Exactly.
people that are older than you,
Yeah.
you know? That's amazing. Senior
Yeah.
prom, so, like, do they get dressed up
Oh,
and
yeah. They really get dressed up, and, we feed them. They dance. We have a
sweet.
king and queen crown from each one of the senior centers. I mean, it is all out. It is so much
That is so
fun.
cool. Do
So
they fight
much
over, is
fun.
there, like, politics involved with
You know what? There's usually already somebody, everybody has already decided at each one of the senior centers. And our our first one, senior prom, it was a couple that went to the Casa de Amigos Senior Center. They'd been married for like 68 years. They were just precious. Precious, precious. So it's really a lot of fun. It pulls at your heart, and a lot of them have never experienced anything like that.
No.
And so it's
Makes it
really,
special.
yeah, it's
I mean,
really
that's
a lot
something
of
I worry
fun.
about a lot too, because, they're talking about the greatest transfer of wealth regardless of where you
Mhm.
are economically. But the baby boomer generation is getting older,
Mhm.
and there's not enough care centers to support this amount of people that are going to transition from their homes
Mhm.
to senior centers or to retirement
To
facilities or
retirement.
retirement
Yeah.
areas. You don't necessarily have to live in a retirement community to be a part of a retirement community. It could
Mhm.
be in even a neighborhood. Look at Midland. All of these homes
Exactly.
are selling because the elderly, like my next door neighbors, we really befriended a woman who had been widowed for 30 years,
Mhm.
and after she sold her house, she had to think through the logistics of how to navigate the world,
Yeah.
as somebody who
Yeah.
doesn't have a home anymore. She's living in an apartment. What does that
Mhm.
look like? If you haven't had a mortgage in, I don't know, 40 years,
Exactly.
you have to navigate that. I can imagine
Mhm.
that, that would be very challenging for some people.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's just one part.
Yeah, that's just
So
one
tell
part.
me about your youth and family services that you guys offer.
So we have after school tutoring and summer camp, of course, and really the goal, and we focus our efforts towards elementary age, and our goal is really to just make sure that they feel confident in school.
Mhm.
We want them to have great reading skills. That always helps the math skills.
Mhm.
And then we want them to have a genuine love for education because you never stop learning.
No.
And also a part of it is we want them to learn how to um, be a friend to others and be a friend to themselves.
Ooh,
Not give themselves such a hard time, and really kind of work through, some of those issues that they might. School is hard for kids these days.
yeah.
And we just want them to be equipped to be great citizens of, our community and to feel good about their education and
And level of education too.
exactly.
Wow, I
Exactly.
know that literacy is a huge deal right now. I know that
Mhm.
the New York Times recently posted something saying that, children are almost 3 years behind in some areas of the United States in their literacy because of
Mhm.
COVID.
Oh yeah, that was such a tough time.
I know, and I've seen it. I've seen so many issues on just speaking with our friends here on
Mhm.
this podcast about, what teachers are seeing, what, organizations that have nothing to do with literacy, like the West Texas Food Bank and how that
Oh
they were
yeah.
impacted. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's insane how many challenges that this has
Mhm.
caused. So I can imagine your families are trying to play catch up, but that's such a delicate balance for sure of trying to make sure that children understand that they're not alone in
Exactly.
this. And I mean, as somebody who has learning disabilities themselves, like I have dyslexia and dyscalculia. So
Mhm.
for me, school was very difficult. And I understand what that feels like to
Mhm.
be feeling like the one that, is different. And that doesn't feel so good.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
you have senior centers and you have youth support. And then
Yeah.
what's another service that you guys offer?
So, adult education, we do
Okay.
English as a second language, GED classes. We have financial literacy. Actually, right now we're doing volunteer income tax assistance. So anybody that makes under 63,000 ish a year, we can make an appointment. We can do income
Wow.
taxes free. That way, the if they are eligible for a refund, that's usually the one biggest pot of money they get at one time,
Mhm.
and they're able to spend it on something important,
Yeah.
paying off a bill, putting it in savings, maybe getting some additional education, getting something medically done that they need to, all of those kinds of things. And then we have our Take Two program, which is a scholarship program for low income individuals so that they can get a certificate or a license in a hard to fill occupation. So, like in that, one of the most popular is the truck driving because
CDL.
yes,
Mhm.
around here you can make a family wage if you
100%.
are a great truck driver.
Sand haulers, water haulers, cement trucks. I mean,
Exactly. All over, and it's just a really great living for a family. And so, yeah, but pharmacy tech, there's just so many.
phlebotomists. I know
Yes,
Midland College has a
exactly.
program for anyone. And I know,
Yeah.
like, you can go in and get your associate's degree, and they have a lot of scholarships that are
Mm-hmm.
available. Midland Memorial Hospital will sometimes help with that as well.
Exactly.
And they will actually help you with employment because they want to hire. And I
Exactly.
know
Exactly.
OCC has a program that will teach EMS. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
really big proponent for not always encouraging college education and really pushing, the service based
Mm-hmm.
education, doing technical college, you
Exactly.
know?
Everyone has their own set of skills and their own wishes or goals for
Hmm.
their life. Not everybody has to go to college and get a
No,
4-year degree.
no.
And most plumbers make way more than I'll ever see.
Okay, let's talk about, I mean,
So,
that's amazing because I know that private equity are now coming in and buying
mhm,
HVAC companies and plumbing and electrical companies. And a lot of these families that are second generation, third generation electrician are able to really benefit economically because I'm not
yes.
saying private equity is great, but it is such something that can become, not only is it is a really feasible way for somebody to get out of the culture of poverty, which is a
Mhm,
sociology term to describe the systematic oppression that people can see economically, socially, all of the above.
mhm.
But also, it can help provide a trajectory of stability for a family, which can really impact generations.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of cool that there's a little bit economic development
Mhm.
in that area so that they could maybe even provide for generations that they won't even meet. So
Exactly.
that's wonderful.
Exactly.
Great. Now, one of the programs I just wanted to make sure that I was able to bring up and you guys got some attention to was your Take Two job training.
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So that is the program that helps
Oh,
with
great.
like the CDL, HVAC, electric, all of those
Hmm.
careers that it really are high paying and life
Yes.
changing. And that program started in 2010 was when Casa and Chevron started working together and talking about this program. And by 11, it was off the ground. And we have had so many people that go through that program, and we don't just pay for them to go to school. They have a part of it. They have to pay a portion of what that amount will
Makes
be.
sense. You have equity, you have skin in the game,
Exactly. But we also do help them with some life skills, how to get a job,
resume,
what is expected in the job, yeah, in the workplace,
soft
resume, yeah,
skills.
all of those kind of things, budgeting. Because when you get a high paying job and you've never experienced that
Yeah.
before, you want to go buy a car. I mean, who doesn't?
Okay. So
And so it's talking about those
do you
things.
remember, I think it was A&E that did excuse me, a documentary about the oil field, and they talked about, we get a bad rap in this area for, the one guy that goes on TV and then says, "No, everyone out here, you're getting paid X, Y, and Z amount." And, I go the next day and blow it on a really fancy truck, right? But it's also pretty accurate, if you've never experienced any sort of wealth and you've now just realized, oh my gosh, now have this education, I now have had more money than I've ever had before.
Hmm.
If you have no idea how to manage those funds, that's a
Yeah.
really significant thing that I mean, it's a responsibility that you have to take on as an individual.
And it's something if you don't know, you need to learn. You
Exactly.
have to learn. And a lot of people have not had the opportunity to learn those skills.
Exactly.
And so that's one of the areas that we think is really important is that, you're a good steward of what you make
Mhm.
so that you're able to afford those things because we all also understand the oil industry goes up and down. And so one day they may be doing very well and the next day they are laid off.
Yeah.
But then, if they continue to hone their skills, whatever that is, the next time they are probably going to be hired at a greater rate, at a
Exactly.
different position, a better position.
Upward trajectory.
Exactly, exactly. And then they've got all these skills that during those low times, they're able to go find what it is that they want to do. And
Tanya, it's amazing because just the way that you guys are organized, there's so much creativity in being able to serve your patrons and the people that you serve because you guys are such a micro maybe a conglomerate is the right word to use, where you're just solutions minded. It's amazing. Do you think that's because you're bored, or do you think that's just because of just who you guys are as a core?
I think that's just our culture.
I love that.
We're just not going to let somebody leave the building feeling like nothing happened for them, that they couldn't get any help. Because even if there happens to be something we can't do within our organization, we have so many relationships in the community with so many other, nonprofits, companies, the hospital, you name it.
Right.
We're going to work with whoever it is to make sure that whatever that need is met and that they feel cared for, the client feels cared for, and that's really just who we are. That's our culture. That's always been important to me. That was one of the things I think I learned, just in my education. You cannot assume that people know something. You just can't
Oh
assume
man,
that.
what a good sound bite. I love that because that's something I talk about all the time with. This is not my day job. This is just my love letter to Midland. That I do this for fun. And that's something that I talk about in my day job as a swim coach is you can never
Mhm.
assume that someone understands something. You always want to check for understanding because
Exactly.
sometimes people are afraid to say I don't know what you're talking about. And if
Exactly.
you're having somebody who, maybe doesn't know how to read,
Mhm.
that is something that is so I just know, just statistically speaking, dyslexics in particular are oftentimes those who have the lowest literacy rates because they're too afraid to say, I don't know, something is not working for me.
Mhm.
And there's so much shame, statistically speaking, there's a lot of correlation between anxiety and depression amongst people who have dyslexia or learning
Mhm.
disabilities in general. I know that, did you know that I think it's like 61% of the prison population are actual dyslexic or have learning disabilities?
Mhm.
So, it's so important that
Exactly.
even if you're serving within a nonprofit organization, or even if you're just, a mom listening to this podcast, I think it's really important to never assume that somebody truly understands how to get their way out
Mhm.
of something. And more often than not, people just need more connection, right?
Exactly.
Extending a hand is so helpful. And I think,
Mhm.
what prevents people from doing that is because, oh, I don't want to interfere. And I think that's a Southern thing, especially in Texas.
Maybe so.
Mind your business. I mean, but in my opinion, the thing that I think really changed people's perspectives in 2020 with the whole pandemic
Mhm.
is that we literally cannot live without each other.
Exactly.
If you're in isolation, you can really go down a really bad
Mhm.
trajectory. And what I mean by bad is just sad, disconnected, lonely. There's a
Mhm.
loneliness epidemic right now within the United States that the Surgeon General is saying that parents have never been more stressed out in their entire life because they feel the pressure of the world around them. And I personally, as a parent who has children
Mhm.
under the age of 6, I got 2 of them, 6 and 4. I'm in the thick of it, and I understand. And I had my daughter during, 2020.
Yes.
And I mean, that I feel like you go to another place when you're pregnant, but just mentally, you're like, whatever, we're good. Like laser focused on the end goal, right? But, I have lived through that. I have seen people lose their jobs. I got laid
Mhm.
off during COVID and then luckily I had a side hustle, which was my swim business,
Mhm.
and was able to turn that around. But I am privileged to be able to do that. I'm privileged enough to have 20 years of swim lesson experience underneath my belt, and I had a swim scholarship. That's not
Yeah.
something that's normal. And my background is I'm adopted, and my birth mother left a domestically violent relationship, was in a women's shelter.
Mhm.
I'm not trauma dumping, maybe I am, but what I'm trying to say is I am uniquely aware of where I'm at in relation to where I could
Mhm.
have been. And
Exactly.
I think it's really important for people to reflect on that. And if you haven't had that situation, that's fine, but just don't assume that everyone has the same perspective as you. And when we open our minds to that possibility that maybe someone is different than you, Diane Cole Wiggum was just here, and we were talking about the importance of not isolating yourself within a group within Midland and really diversifying the people that touch your life, because it
Mhm.
can really impact how you view Midland. And I think those who have negative opinions of Midland tend to isolate themselves.
Well, I think something that I've learned throughout my career, and you've hit it on it several times in what you were
Sorry to
saying.
go preachy, but
No, I mean, it's exactly right. I think sometimes we, just try to go along and make sure we take care of our own business
Mhm,
and not share. But what I found throughout my career is everybody's got a story.
mhm,
Everybody's got something that, maybe didn't go quite right.
mhm,
And it's really kind of shaped what they can
mhm,
do and what they want to do. And if you just give people the opportunity to talk and you listen,
mhm.
there's just so many things that we can do to help each other
Mhm.
and to
I think there'd be
make
less divide.
exactly,
We're kind of
exactly.
not in we're in the midst of a very non-bipartisan community, within the United States. And I think what's really important too, just talking about your seniors in particular, it just inspires me to think and reflect upon how much we can learn from our elders.
Hmm.
I mean, it's so interesting to hear their life's perspective. And quite honestly, I think what causes anxiety is we get so like, our lives are right here. But
Yeah.
when we speak to our elders and we get to know them, our perspectives are widened so significantly that sometimes our,
Hmm.
issues that are very close to our eyes and our hearts can sometimes seem a little bit less significant. And I
Yes.
think our elders can offer that level of
Hmm.
perspective. On
Exactly.
that note, how can people provide like volunteering and connection with your organization? Do you guys have any immediate needs that you need filled? Is there anything that people can do to help support Casa de Amigos?
Well, we always have volunteer needs, of course. And so, and there's a lot of ways that people can volunteer. They can come up with a great craft and do something fun with the seniors, but we need tutors for our GED classes and our ESL classes, for the kiddos after school. So we're always looking for tutors. To help with those. We look for medical professionals in our community to help with our health and wellness programs, especially Leslie's Place,
Mhm.
our newest initiative
That's awesome.
at Casa de Amigos is just a fantastic uh, opportunity for people, for adults who have no insurance to be provided some sort of care.
So tell me about
And
Leslie's Place. The
so,
name itself kind of lends me to think that maybe it's in honor of someone.
yes. So there was a young lady in our community who passed from COVID, and she knew how important. She was very philanthropic, and her family very philanthropic. But she
Mhm.
knew how important it was for people to have access to education. I mean, to medical care. She understood the importance of continuum of care and being able to talk to a doctor about whatever those needs might be medically. And she knew that a lot of people in our community did not, were not provided that
It's
opportunity.
amazing.
And so she really kind of had that discussion with people that were close to her, including her husband, Lee Wood, and about, what that looked like. And so between him and Midland Memorial Hospital and Texas Tech Health
Mhm.
Sciences Center, we all worked together and developed Leslie's Place
It's
in honor
amazing.
of her. And we've probably seen, uh, as Dr. C says, we ripped the Band-Aid off in August of 21,
Wow, a
uh,
year after
20,
COVID started.
21 or 22. I might have
Don't
my,
worry,
but
there's will
yes,
be a
yeah,
test. It's
no
okay.
test, but, and so we've been open, with the clinic Tuesday and Thursday evenings, since that time. We've probably seen over 1,000, 1,200 different people,
It's amazing.
and help establish that continuum of care. And so we keep on working through that clinic to make sure that we continue to develop it in a way that's going to be very, very helpful to adults, whether that be that we got them towards an insurance opportunity, whether we are able to establish them with a doctor, whatever that looks like. We just really work with all the partners in the community to make sure
Wow.
that people can get the health care that they need. You were talking about children and their success. Well, the health care of a family,
Mhm.
really lends to children's success in school and in life. And for parents or adults to be successful in their community, healthcare is really important.
Right. And then preventative health care too. I know that Stephen Bowerman and I were talking about, preventative health and what does that look like? And something that I think has been really interesting to hear just after we released that episode, how many people were realizing, oh my gosh, Midland Memorial has so many resources.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to just throw a rock, right? And just cast stones on people, but not really understand the impact of their words and realize that maybe that organization, is doing more than what we thought. And that's really what the, purpose of this
Hmm.
podcast is to really challenge misconceptions and then really challenge the negative
Yeah.
understanding of our community, but then also to bring light to what is being done here. Because
Hmm.
it's so easy. Like I said, it's so easy for us to say, there's nothing to do in Midland. There's no resources. I don't have anything here. Yada, yada, yada. Go onto any mom group on
Yeah.
Facebook, which I think there's a lot of wonderful people on there, but sometimes the loudest wheel is, the loudest squeaky wheel
Hmm.
is often what informs opinions, like permanent opinions about our community. And unfortunately, sometimes those type of people are the ones that are really not doing the research or even giving any sort of effort to get to know our community. And I
Yeah.
I personally believe that what's so amazing, and this is just my opinion about Casa de Amigos, that you guys truly care about what is really affecting marginalized communities within our, West Texas.
Hmm.
And I think that's so important because, they're already overlooked. So how can we support these groups of people? And it sounds so great that you have so many community members that are just coming in and saying, "Listen, I just do this. Maybe I'm a teacher, I'm a math teacher. How can I help?" You know?
Exactly. And there's just so many opportunities to do that throughout Casa de
So it's
Amigos.
better for people to reach out
Hmm.
and at least say, "Hey, this is what I do. Do you see any relevance?"
Yeah. And then we'll put them to work.
That's awesome.
Even if they have an idea that maybe doesn't fit exactly somewhere,
Yeah.
usually after a little bit of discussion, we know exactly what it is
Yeah.
that they can do because there are so many opportunities. I mean, even in the food distribution
Mhm.
days, every third Tuesday of the month, we have companies of people that come out, we have individuals that come out just to be a strong person to get, and it's
Boxes into trucks.
exactly. And
Mhm.
it's so fulfilling because I can assure you that everybody in that line who is receiving that food, a lot of them are older adults. And it is such a huge help. And the other ones are just trying to make it from day to day.
Mhm.
And they are just so grateful for that bit of help.
I
And,
know.
I'm sure Libby talked about it. I
Mhm.
mean, they're just so grateful. And so, it brings a lot of sunshine to a lot of people's
Mhm.
hearts because they get to actually see, the gratefulness of others.
The immediate impact of their volunteering, I think, is so
Exactly.
important.
Exactly.
And I feel, as we get into this, new decade, It's halfway over already.
I
Isn't that
know.
wild?
Mhm.
Something that I've noticed just raising kids is I've noticed the importance of us making sure that we're acutely aware of the needs of our community members.
Mhm.
And just like what Miss Diane was saying, is I think it's important to not live your life in isolation. And I think you guys really do provide an opportunity that's accessible for those who don't want to live in isolation anymore,
Yeah.
and to give back to our community in whatever way that you've been gifted in your life. Who's to say that your gifts are not going to be valuable to this organization?
Well, and there's so many groups, in schools throughout the community that focus their attention on philanthropy
Mhm.
and helping others in the communities where they live,
Mhm.
from the littlest ones to, high school kiddos. And so we engage with a lot of those groups too. And it is precious. We have notes on the whiteboard in our doctor room in Leslie's
Sweet.
place from a group of brownies from Trinity School who went in there and just wrote, "Thank you for,
That's sweet.
helping other people." And these sweet little pictures from these little, young people who really are understanding what philanthropy is and about helping your neighbor and being mindful of each other and, realizing that it's not just, their group, it's a whole community of neighbors
Wow.
that you can be a part of. And it's just really precious to see, So we have volunteers of all ages.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
On that note, like my last question for you is, what gives you hope for Midland? Is it seeing the youth getting involved? Have you seen volunteering go up in the last couple of years where you're like, man, this is going to really change the trajectory of our community? What is it? What do you think gives you the most hope for Midland?
Well, I'm basically from Midland. I moved here when I was in the 6th grade.
That counts.
Yeah. And so, and I've watched Midland grow
Hmm.
so much through the years. And one of the things that I know about our community, even from when I was a young person, is how philanthropic and how giving our community is. Uh, this is just really a unique community in really, I think, the entire United
I
States
agree.
because of how giving everybody really is. And so I think that's one of my takeaways about still living here and being a part of this community is that we just continue to grow and continue, all of our nonprofit friends and neighbors, we're always trying to figure out, okay, how can we do things better? Can we serve well? What can we do to work together.
Right.
I think all of those things are really important. And we have so many individuals, families, foundations throughout our community that are just very supportive of making sure that all of our community, all of our friends and neighbors in the Permian Basin and in Midland are well taken care of and have every opportunity, given to them. I remember when there was no loop,
I
and
can't imagine. What was that like?
the it was really kind of fun. There was no Target, a long time ago.
Oh my gosh,
Everything past
wild.
there was not even here. And so just watching the growth, and there's so many new people that are coming to Midland. And one of the things that I hear over and over and over again are people saying, I just cannot believe how nice everybody is here. I mean, yeah,
That's a West Texas thing.
the traffic's a little tough, every once in a while, "Why are you stop driving so fast?" All of those kind of things, and, there are some people that are a little mean-spirited every now and then, but, on the whole, that's just what we are,
Right.
and I hear that all the time from people that are moving here to Midland.
One of my really good friends, Claire Stallings Ramirez, who owns the Scout Guide West Texas,
Mhm,
she always reminds me of a phrase that I think often people have adopted over the last maybe like 10 years. Whereas like the phrase is you cry when you have to move to Midland, but if you have to move out, you're crying because you're
mhm,
leaving.
yeah,
And I think this, you know what it I there's a couple different reasons why I started this podcast. One of them is to challenge the maybe preconceptions that people have, maybe negative preconceptions that people have, maybe that's the right word, I hope, of what Midland is. but then also to introduce people to what is available here. But then also, just if you're not from here, and let's just say like your husband's being transferred, I hope that families will tune in and start to
Mhm.
see, okay, what am I actually moving into? Because I remember 9 years ago what it felt like to move here. And what I started to notice is that my mind slowed down.
Yeah.
Living in a big city my entire life, you're kind of like, go, 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 go. And you're driving and you're stressed
Mhm.
out and yada, yada, yada. Midland is so, I know for myself and my family, is such a slow paced life that I think that's part of the reason why people are so inclined to give back, because it really gets you more centered on what is truly valuable to give, like
Mhm.
in your core. And I think people start to realize, okay, wait, there's not a lot of stuff to do here in their head. And then they, year 2, 3, 4, 5, they start to realize, wait, there actually is. And it is 100% community.
Mhm.
Like if you're, again, in isolation, you're going to be unhappy in Midland. My mother-in-law uses a really good term that I try to like really adopt often, especially if you're feeling lonely. You have those days, right?
Mhm.
But anytime I'm feeling like that, I try to think, what she says is you have to make your own fun.
Mhm.
And I think one of the best ways to do that is to volunteer and to give back to your
Absolutely.
community, because if you're bored and you're feeling lonely, it's probably because your
Mhm.
hands are idle. So go do something for
Exactly.
someone else. And then who's to say you might not meet a new friend? That maybe that's a new thing that you can go do, is like go pack up boxes for the
Mhm.
third Tuesday of every month for Casa De Amigos. Like how I plugged that.
Exactly. I like that.
I landed the plane pretty good on that.
I
Well,
like
on that
it.
note, thank you so much for having us. And people can reach you. What's the best way to get a hold of you so that you can
So
give back?
they can call us, of
Okay.
course, 682-9701. We have a website. They can just come to our building and ask for a tour. There's just, yeah, any way you can get a hold of us. And I do have to give a plug. We do have a
Please.
fundraiser coming up.
Ooh, please tell us.
Yes, so on March 22nd, it's a Saturday evening, first time we've had one on a Saturday evening. We have our House of Friends Gala, and
Nice.
we're so excited because we have Matt Friend who
Ooh.
is coming in for the entertainment, and then
Nice.
we also are going to have a dance band. They're called Forte Entertainment, and so we'll have dancing and some fun, and silent and live auction, all of that stuff. A great meal, just a lot of fun. So we're really,
Wow.
really excited about that. So we have a few sponsorships left.
Call Tanya.
Yes, call me.
It's not a threat.
Yeah.
Or else. I'm
So
just kidding.
but we are really excited to have that coming up,
That's
and
wonderful.
yeah.
Well, that's great. You have a lot to be proud of. And I know that you're going to probably say, no, it's my team. But I think it's incredible what you and your team are doing, and just the legacy that you guys have, when it's all started in with a couple church ladies,
hmm
trying to get together to solve a problem. It's
It's a
incredible.
fantastic legacy
That's
of
wonderful.
a lot of service.
Well, that's great. Midland is lucky to have you guys. Well,
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And be sure to subscribe to Raising Midland on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And please follow my friends, Casa de Amigos, on all your social media platforms. Thanks. Bye bye.